Hi, good afternoon. I'm Ian Crosher from Natural England, and I'm going to talk about nature-based solutions for net zero. So, first of all, really, why net zero? Why is it so important? So we signed up to this target in the summer of 2019 and made it a commitment that we were going to reach net zero by 2050. And what this really means, the IPCC here sums it up quite well, that we need to reduce our emissions by 45% from 2010 levels by 2030 to have a good chance of reaching net zero by 2050. And nature-based solutions, well, what are they, and how are we looking at those? I think the key thing really to pick out here is that it's all about human well-being and biodiversity benefits. So lots of people talk about nature-based solutions. The first couple of speakers have mentioned it already, but it's really just to emphasize how important that biodiversity benefit aspect of it is compared with just things that help the climate and might use nature to do that. So this is a graph that really shows you the emissions from different sectors that we've got. The one we're really interested in is this LULUCF, land use change and forestry, down the right hand side. That's the part that we really sit in. But just to really emphasize, all those other emissions out there, really high ones. The energy supply has come down massively. It was the biggest and it is now the second biggest, and hopefully will carry on reducing massively as more and more renewable energy comes online. But we've got this small little sector down the bottom, but it is the only negative one, i.e. all the other ones are giving it. We're the only one area that is taking emissions out of the atmosphere. And what are the examples are we going to look at and talk a bit more about today? So these are the key ones that we're interested in. So peatland restoration, really important. Woodland creation, really familiar one to everybody. Plant trees, they're good. And we'll go into a bit more of the detail about what that really means and the types of things that are coming from that. So how have our peatlands been degraded, and what's the really thing? So the big thing about peatlands is that they're our biggest carbon store. A lot of carbon has been stored in that organic matter and stored down over years. And what we've done over the last couple of 100 years is degrade those in a big way, and consequently a lot of, well, all our peatlands really are losing carbon now where they at one time would have stored carbon. And our big thing that we need to do then is turn that around so that they reduce or giving out very little emissions. The emissions inventory for UK peatlands. So up until the next round of reporting, peatlands was not including in our emissions reporting. And I sat on the steering group for this work and really looked at a lot of the emissions that are there and how much has been emitting. This was published last year, and the links are there, but the headline figures there. So UK peatlands, 23.1 million tons of CO2 equivalent per year. And in England, half of that, or just under half, 11.1 million tons of CO2. So big figures, fairly big numbers. And that has the ability possibly to take that LULUCF from a negative to a positive from that. This is just a breakdown of it. Where are those emissions coming from? And so this is a breakdown for England. And hopefully from this, you can see that the really big ones is from agricultural conversion, draining our peatlands, particularly our lowland peatlands, turning it into arable farmland. So the Fens, the Somerset Levels, the areas around Manchester, the Alt Crossing catchments in the northwest are all really big emitters. 64% of UK emissions from peat comes from that type of land use. And as you come down that list, you come all the way to those restored bogs. Those are the ones that we've already done action on, taken them a long way to being in a lot better condition. And you can see that they're 22%, similar amount from the cropland, but it's only emitting 1.2% of the emissions itself. Just to sort of put that in context in terms of how many households does that mean? What does that really mean in terms of real world? Then, you know, 2.8 million households, 1.37 for UK in England, of the 27.6 million households in the UK. So you can start to see, obviously, as our household emissions come down, that's affecting it. So restoring our peatlands is a big part of the solution. Where you've got peatland areas, we really need to be thinking about the best solution and the best management for them to reduce those emissions. And the more things like sphagnum moss we can get in, the better, really. So, okay, I'm going to move quickly onto woodlands. So, very well known, woodlands is a critical part. Growing trees, fairly evident to everybody that locks in carbon, takes it out in the atmosphere and brings it in. We've got a very low woodland cover in this country, and I think it's pretty agreed by everybody that it's a very good thing that we increase that. As you can see, the little diagram on the left, you know, UK 4.7 trees per person, compared with Canada, which has 10,000 odd trees per person. So a long way to go to even get up to, you know, France or the United States. And the biggest area of carbon storage within our trees is very much in our broadleaf woodland. You know, they're denser woods, better at storing carbon, you know, lots more branches, and leaves that store very good carbon. So 75% of England woodland is broadleafed carbon storage. So retaining and keeping our present carbon storage is really important, and the more we can concentrate on our highest important areas, which is ancient woodland, and restoring those, particularly on previously ancient woodland sites, the better, really. The next really big thing is to really link the peatland and the trees together, and where we've got peatland, we shouldn't be putting trees on them, because that undermines the peat storage, the carbon in the peat. And we really want to put our trees on mineral soils, and I think Oliver Rackham sums it up so well there. But it's very much about how we, where we put them to get the best sequestration. So different species makes a lot of different soil types, different climate, different spacing, all makes quite a big difference to how much carbon sequestration those trees make. Two very good tools already exist. So the Woodland Carbon Code can work a lot of this out and really help you do this calculation and things. And the Peatland Code does that really well for peatlands as well. It's mainly concentrating on the uplands, but there's lots of work in progress to do it more for the lowlands as well. So just to really signpost that, and really this is just to say that that's not to say that we shouldn't be ignoring grasslands, heathlands, all our other habitats. They all form and store more carbon than their equivalent agricultural system, if you like, or equivalent land use. So they're still really important. Where we've got high biodiversity sites, we need to retain them for that site in so many ways. Just really to touch on this, agriculture obviously really important. We don't want to get rid of agriculture in this country and offset it somewhere else in the world, and consequently we need to think about that. Agricultural emissions have really only come down due to drop in livestock numbers, not for anything else. So there's a lot of work to do there, and there's quite a lot already sort of happening on that front, and we know a lot of those actions that can really help reduce farm-based emissions. Committee on Climate Change Net Zero report sets a lot of this out, and really sort of does some of those figures and where that can come, just to really make you understand where that is. I think the peatland figure can be a lot bigger. So it's only 5 million tons of CO2 equivalent here, but obviously there's 21,000 potentially to go out there. Just lastly, really to say, it's all quite place specific. We don't want to get rid of places without and put trees in the wrong place. We could be undermining what we actually want from the nature recovery. So right tree in the right place. And this is really just a summary thing of how that nature recovery sits with the net zero part and the nature-based solutions as well, which really can deliver for a wider audience as well. So the two I've really talked about are the two most important ones in the middle there, peatland restoration, but we've got things like regenerative agriculture for wildlife, habitat expansion, all in that mix that you know, can really help. And also where we put some of these other things like the bioenergy, non-native production forestry, still really important things to do, but we've got to make sure that they fit and are in a place that doesn't prevent some of these other things being able to be enacted. Just to conclude really, so you know, where and how we put NBS are delivered is critical to its success. Time is critical, so really early implementation to save carbon is absolutely imperative. You know, waiting till 2045 for this 2050 net zero is not going to deliver very much. Trees take time to grow, peatlands take time to restore. So we need to get on and really start implementing these things now. Thank you very much.